Husband's been secretly hiding a second phone and using it to communicate with someone I don't know, and I didn't discover it during some cinematic search with the rain pouring and a single lamp left on. I found it on a Tuesday between shifts when I was trying to fix our sticky junk drawer because I'm Noor 31. A paramedic who spends nights listening for the quiet that means something is very wrong and days trying to keep ordinary things running, and that drawer had become my white whale of domestic irritation, full of rubber bands that snap and batteries whose charge is a rumor and warranties for appliances we've already forgiven. I pulled, the drawer stuck, and a rectangle slid forward under the pile of takeout menus. The weight of it in my hand felt familiar and not at the same time. It was a phone, not new, not old, black with a cheap clear case clouded at the corners, no fingerprints on the glass because whoever hid it wiped it clean before they hid it. It buzzed once in my palm as if it had a pulse, and the preview banner climbed the screen with that silent confidence only secrets have. Did you get home? Call me if you can. M. Nothing else. Just an initial and the kind of softness reserved for people who have an understanding about where to stand inside your life. I stood there in my kitchen in my uniform pants with my radio still clipped to my belt and felt my own heartbeat do the strange study that happens before you lift a patient onto a gurney. I have been in houses where silence means a fainting spell and in houses where silence means a life was left behind. This was the silence where your history rearranges its furniture. I didn't open it right then. I put it on the counter. I washed a glass. I poured water. I took a sip and watched my hand stay still, which felt like a small victory. I have learned that my best decisions arrive if I make space big enough for them to walk through the door. My husband, Rayhan, is 33 and manages logistics for a grocery chain. He is good at routes and pallets and turning chaos into something a truck can handle. He is the person who labels the flour bin. He calls our cat Sir and me Captain because he thinks language is a way to tuck affection into a pocket where it won't fall out. He also apparently has a phone I did not know existed tucked under soy sauce packets and a keychain from a ramen shop we never liked. The screen lit again, unsaved number, no name, a text bubble breathing, I miss you. My training kicked in the way it does when a patient grabs your wrist and says the short truth. I picked up the phone because if danger is in your house you are allowed to turn on the lights. No lock screen. Either it was old or he trusted his hiding spot more than he trusted me. The messages opened to a thread with M at the top, the number below it, no photo. It reads so simply when you say it out loud. A column of words that did not belong to me. They weren't filthy, not the way you think when you hear a story from the neighborhood. They were intimate in the scarier way, grocery jokes, a complaint about a coworker's overuse of calendar invite, a photo of a street at dusk with the caption, "This is the blue I meant," a voice note of someone laughing, that involuntary, unscripted kind of laughter people do when they've been surprised by a softness. His replies were the version of him I love, a little wry, gentle even when he's tired. Only the jokes were theirs, the shorthand was theirs. If you've ever seen your reflection in a window and realized the silhouette isn't you, that's what reading it felt like. He told her he didn't sleep well. She told him to put the phone on the floor so the screen didn't call to him. He told her he had put it in the drawer and she had said, "I like being the secret drawer." I could feel the air in my kitchen go stale and mean. There were logistical tells too. He'd say warehouse order on nights that suddenly matched these "you made it" check-ins. And there were gaps, those blank hours where the thread's last message was "I'm here" and the next one was "you're safe" and then a heart. I'm not an amateur detective. I'm just a woman whose job is to notice when the quiet changes shape. I did something extremely unheroic. I put the phone back and shoved the drawer closed. I stood there with my hands on the counter and counted to 60. Then I took a picture of the drawer with my own phone, a picture of where it sat in the mess, because if I confronted him later and he tried to say I went looking, I wanted to remember the ridiculous choreography of how simple it was to find. I texted my older sister, Hiba, the photo with no caption. She replied with a skull emoji and then, a second later, the words, "I'm coming with tea," and the stare. While I waited, I made 2 lists on the back of an envelope because paperwork calms me, what I know and what I need. No, there is a phone, it is active, it is hidden, it speaks to M. Need, daylight for the conversation, names not initials, nouns not metaphors, my own shoes on my feet and no apology in my mouth that belongs to him. Hiba walked in with a tin of cardamom biscuits and the kind of eyes that have opinions. She hugged me, looked at the drawer, looked at me, and without being asked she washed a mug and made tea because in our family the kettle is what you put between yourself and the ledge. I showed her the thread. She read like a nurse reads a chart, category, symptom, timeline. She inhaled once through her nose, our mother's disapproval, then let it go. Do you want to turn this into a case file or a conversation? She asked. Conversation, I said. But one where he doesn't get to bring a fog machine. We decided together not to wait for midnight. He was due home at 6:30. I could have sat on the floor rehearsing what dignity sounds like, but my hands prefer tasks. I tidied, which is either a coping mechanism or a spell. I set out plates and then put them away because dinner felt like a script for people pretending. Hiba texted her partner to feed their kids and planted herself with me like she was defending a small country. He came in humming. He set down the bag of groceries he always brings home in his noble way, milk, a loaf of bread, cilantro waving like a flag, and the humming died in his throat when he saw both of us and the misplaced calm in the room. He's not a fool. He looked at the counter as if it might brief him. I opened the drawer and put the phone on the table like a heart we did not authorize. Whose? I asked. Something passed across his face, shock, then the quick slick of a lie, and then the awareness that he was married to a woman who can tell the difference between a seizure and a shiver. Saturday. He did not reach for the phone, which is how I knew he understood the gravity. It's mine, he said. I got it after your night shift started going long. I didn't want to bother you with buzzing. He looked away, ashamed of how bad his excuse sounded in air. Also, he added quiet, I liked having a place where nobody needed me to be a version of myself who always knows where the gauze is. He glanced at my uniform pants. That sounds, he whispered, worse than I meant. Who is M? I said. He swallowed. Maya, he said. There it was, a whole name. My knees unlocked a fraction, which surprised me. From where? I asked. She works at the central distribution hub, he said. We started talking during a late delivery problem. She was on night shift too. Hiba raised an eyebrow at talking the way a border agent raises a hand at a traveler's just a quick visit. How long? I said. 3 months, he said, and either that was sloppily true or bravely false, I pressed. Messages longer. Meeting twice, he added quickly, the truth arriving like a slightly late bus. Coffee. A walk by the canal. Nothing happened. He looked at me, then said, we kissed once, and put his eyes down like he deserved to stare at his own knees for the rest of time. I don't shout. I am the kind of woman whose anger gets very still. Call her, I said. On speaker. Say to her what you say when you believe the people in the room are adults. He looked sick. He dialed. The phone rang once and a woman answered with a voice that sounded so normal it made me furious. Hey, she said. He said her name, then mine, and then he said, I can't do this. I have been lying to my wife by omission and to myself by acting like a different room makes me a different man. I am ending this. Please don't contact me again. Silence. Then very quietly, okay, she said. I thought you would choose the softer honesty. This is the only kind that counts, I said, because I wanted a sentence that would stand up straight later. She didn't perform, I'll give her that. I'm not proud, she said. I told myself it was friendship. I told myself it was 2 night shift people exchanging oxygen. That was nonsense. Her voice had that flat truth I respect in people who have decided to stop pretending. Goodbye, she said and hung up. I breathed for the first time since the drawer opened. He tried to speak and failed. Hiba handed him a glass of water because she refuses to let people dehydrate during their worst moments. He sipped. He rubbed his forehead. I am sorry, he said plain. Not just for the thing I did. For becoming someone who thought it was a clever solution to loneliness to add more rooms with the lights off. I am not a hallway, I said. And you don't get to check rooms out like a hotel. He nodded, small, like his neck was a hinge that needed oil. I'll sleep on the couch, he said. Not as martyrdom. As a way for us to not share the same air while you decide if you want me here. He did. I watched him make up a bed with the competence of a man who has moved apartments too many times. I went to our room and lay down, shoes still on, radio still clipped, and stared at the ceiling fan until it looked like a helipad. At 3:12, which is when bad calls often come, I sat up and wrote 3 more lists: what I need from him, what I need for me, and what happens next if the answers are not available. It felt bureaucratic and holy. Mourning gave me back the person I am when I'm not performing grief. I booked a session with a therapist who specializes in first responders and the people who love them. I told her everything and she didn't try to make poetry out of it. "What's the smallest true thing?" she asked. "I refuse to be the woman who dies of politeness," I said, which surprised me with how ready it was. "Good," she said. "Now say a sentence about him that isn't for an audience." "He is not a monster," I said. "He is an ordinary person who chose to be unordinary in the boring way." She nodded. "Your rules will be the difference between the two." We made rules. Ugly, necessary rules that do not win any awards but keep a house standing. The second phone went into a bowl with the other electronics at night for a week while we untangled what belonged to him and what belonged to lying. He gave me the passcode not because I wanted to be a cop, but because the only way my nervous system would lie down was if it knew there wasn't a new door hidden in a drawer. He told me about any contact from her and I told him I do not need running commentary, just a screenshot and peace. He found his own therapist, a man who doesn't let him make I felt unseen into a cape. Together, we chose 2 evenings a week with no screens, not as punishment, as rehab. If he felt the itch to be impressed by someone who wasn't his wife, he texted me itch, and then he cleaned the litter box or went for a long run or called his brother and said out loud, "I want attention," which is humiliating and better than building another drawer. I told my mother a version because she is the person I learned water from. She didn't ask for the woman's name. She asked if I had eaten and then said, "There are 2 kinds of courage in marriage, staying and leaving. Both deserve blankets and soup." I sat at her table and let soup put itself back into my cells and promised myself I would not use endurance as a costume. Work was a relief. On shift, I could be precise. I could measure breaths, count pulses, watch a teenager crack a joke in a bad situation, and believe in the weird little bravado of living. I rode in the back of the rig past our street twice and looked at our building the way you look at an ex at a party, hard and then not at all. If I could keep a stranger's airways open in traffic, I could keep my own life from rolling downhill into a ditch. A week after the drawer, I ran into Maya at a bodega because the city enjoys symmetry. She was shorter than I expected and buying a ginger shot, of course. We recognized each other the way people do when they've heard the same name in different mouths. I braced for theater. She surprised me by not auditioning. "No," she said, and when I nodded she said, "I'm sorry." I watched her eyes do exactly what mine would have done: inventory, respect, retreat. "I told myself a pretty story," she said. "I'm good at them. I'll write a new one that doesn't require a hidden drawer." I could not tell if I wanted to hug her or hand her a pamphlet. "I'm not going to make this a sport," I said. "Me either," she said and moved to pay, and that was the end of our myth. It didn't become better overnight. I wish I could tell you I reclaimed my sleep and my appetite and my trusting in one clean decision. Some nights I still wake when I hear a buzz that isn't there and reach for a phone that isn't mine. Some mornings he looks at me with a question on his face and I answer it by setting a cup of tea down in front of him without speaking. We keep a notebook on the counter where we write a single sentence to each other at the end of the day, tangible proof we are still in the same house on purpose. He writes things like, "I washed the car and thought of your dad's advice about engines needing love," and I write things like, "I got through a 12 and still wanted to come home," and we leave it open because accountability is less scary when it sits with the fruit bowl. We added a rule I didn't know we needed: no new secrets with calendars. If something requires a date and a time, it gets an invitation with both our names. When he has coffee with anyone not already in our family orbit, he tells me before and after with the basics and no blur. Not because I want to keep score, because I want to abolish the drafting table where lies are blueprinted. When I'm exhausted and everything feels heavier than it is, I ask for help without making him read my mind. He started doing something small and decent. He says I'm lonely as a fact, not a trick. That sentence used to be a lever he pulled to open a secret door. Now it is a light switch we flip together. There was a day 2 months later when a call went bad. We worked a code for 22 minutes and I handed a mother back a silence no person deserves. After the paperwork and the debrief and the way the body shakes when the adrenaline stops, I came home and went straight to the shower fully dressed and stood there until the water cooled and then colder, and he waited outside the curtain and slid a towel inside without saying anything. He didn't tell me I'm strong. He didn't make a speech about being better. He sat on the floor and handed me one of those terrible hospital graham crackers we keep in a jar for nights where sugar is medicine, and I ate it and cried and didn't feel alone in a way that made me believe we were building something worth our clean hands. You want to know if I forgave him? The answer changes. It changes based on how much sleep I've had and how many times he remembers the unglamorous corners of our life without applause. It changes based on whether the cat throws up and who wipes it and whether he moves the wash to the dryer without being asked. Forgiveness has become less of a verdict and more of a verb, something we both do in small motions, herding ourselves back toward ordinary. If you're reading this because your kitchen drawer has opinions and you found a second pulse in your house that wasn't yours, I can't hand you a single sentence that solves it. I can hand you a sequence that didn't fail me: water, daylight, a witness with good eyebrows, nouns before metaphors, speakerphone, rules that are boring enough to actually change things, a therapist who doesn't fall in love with your eloquence, a sister who remembers snacks, a decision that gets made again every morning and not just on the night of the storm. Tonight I'll lace up my boots and head into the city's unscripted dark, and somewhere in those hours I will hold a stranger's hand and say you're here until they believe me. When I come home, he'll be there, not with fireworks, with folded laundry and a sink that doesn't need me. We'll eat dal and rice and discuss whether the basil on the windowsill is a fighter. He'll say he signed up for a class to learn how to fix the wobbly kitchen chair instead of buying a new one, and I will hear the sentence beneath it, the vow to repair before replacing. Before sleep I'll put my palm on the drawer we once turned into a courtroom and then into a museum, and I'll say to it out loud, because I'm a woman who knows the value of speaking into quiet, I am here by choice and I will leave by choice if I need to, and for now this house is honest and the phones go in the bowl and the cat is asleep at the foot like a warm punctuation mark. If 3 a.m. comes with its old phantom buzz, I will get up, pour water, count to 60 and choose again, my name first, then his, then the list of things we owe the light.